Streaming now, this is the Wood TV Live Desk.
If you haven't seen Inside Out 2 yet, you might be wondering what it's going to be like. Well, spoiler alert, anxiety is a big focus of it, and we want to talk about the conversation you should have with your kids after you watch it. And to help me do that, I have Christy Buck with the Mental Health Foundation of West Michigan, and we're inside the Grand Rapids Children's Museum.
Sure.
This is such a cool exhibit. It's called Emotions at Play, and this is featuring all of the emotions from the first Inside Out movie. So we've got the control panel.
Yeah, we do. Such a good movie.
It's interesting that it is the control panel, because part of it is that you can't really control the emotions, which is a big part of the second movie. And this all kind of changes. The construction crews come in and add some new stuff. Anxiety being number one.
Yep.
So from a mental health perspective, what do you think we should be talking about with our kids after we watch a movie about anxiety?
I think so much of what we should be talking about in general is coping skills, and how do we ultimately deal with what we know we may have, and that is anxiety. And when you realize that you can notice those onset, notice those things that cause me and bring me anxiety, then I can be prepared for myself to be in control instead of letting anxiety control me.
Okay. And, you know, there's lots of noises here because, I mean, even this, everything in the museum makes noises, which the kids love. It's so much fun.
It is so much fun.
But if you hear anything, that's what you're hearing. And when we talk about anxiety, too, and I don't want to spoil too much of the movie for anybody, but I think we know from the first movie, so much of this is letting some of those emotions happen and not trying to block them out or push them down. What should we talk about with our kids when it comes to allowing emotions?
Well, understanding that everybody is going to experience anxiety and all of these emotions at some time in their life. And if we let these get out of control and we don't know how to handle these certain situations, then that can cause changes in my behavior, changes in my moods more often, and ultimately changes in things that I would love to do. So a big thing that people can experience, especially during those older ages, the onset of anxiety, actually, the median age is 11 years old. So even the movie picks up a little later. And so really, she was struggling with some anxiousness in the first movie. We just didn't talk about it. And those are those fears. In combination can be sadness. And that angst that she had and the fears when she was going to school. So now we're seeing full force the effects that it can have in those middle school years. And now those can curb getting involved in things, doing the things that you love, even in more mood changes.
We also see it in the movie anyways, having an impact on the decisions that we make, and letting certain emotions take over too much can affect making good decisions. And that's kind of a tough conversation to have with kids, I think, just in terms of they don't always want to listen to a lecture, right? Well, they never want to listen to a lecture.
Right.
So what do you think is a good way to approach that conversation in a way that is not off-putting?
Right, and I think parents becoming educated to educate our kids. So when you see the movie, a lot of the movie is adult, for adults to take away and learn more. So when kids are making impulsive decisions, when kids are succumbing to peer pressure, it's time to have those discussions with our kids about part of it being anxiety, about the fear of not fitting in, a part of the fear of doing things that people might think are goofy that I still want to do as a kid, which we'll see in the movie again. So, you know, whenever we see great product, and those are a lot of times movie, a lot of times it's even in music, take those opportunities to talk to your kids. What are your feelings about this? What do you think Riley was feeling at that point when she was making those decisions? I always like to do that in any type of movie, walk away with some type of a lesson learned. And I think that that's ultimately what they're working on doing in this Disney Pixar movie. And I think that's what I gained from Inside Out, the original, the first one. It was such a lovely movie, really, about learning about trying to control depression when we all know at some point we may experience that.
So besides, what do you think Riley was feeling, which that's a great question. Are there other questions you think we can ask once we've seen this movie?
I think also, there's a big thing of, have you ever felt this way before? Have you ever had friends that have felt this way before? What do you feel when you saw the movie? There's a lot of takeaway from the movie about self-awareness, about gaining an understanding of who you are. And that's ultimately, as adults and as parents, we want to work on that with our kids and our teens. Having that self-awareness of being able to notice within yourself when I am struggling and when my anxiety, or anxiety in general, is taking over the things that I love. I think that we have a large problem in our society right now with this illness called anxiety. A lot was post-pandemic, but many of it is coming now from social media and the angst that can cause. So, see the movie, read a good book about anxiety, and have these talks with your kids.
Sense of self was a big part of this movie as well. I feel like it's never too late to work on that. So what's a good way for an adult to model having that self-awareness that you talked about and working on your sense of self to make sure that the sense of self that you're building is a good one?
Well, a lot of the takeaway would be that by discussing this with your kids, you're already opening up the discussion of maybe that I've experienced these things before too, and letting them know that it's normal and typical to feel anxious before certain things are going on, that anxiety is always going to be there before we do enter into tough situations or enter into situations that we are not familiar with, that anxiousness, normalizing anxiety. And then in addition, having your child recognize what coping skills you use for these certain situations. Are they breathing techniques? Are they counting before I enter the room? Is it thinking positive thoughts before I enter into a new situation? And facing those things. Yeah, we'd love to face everything with joy, but it's not always going to happen that way. So I'm going to face it, I'm going to find those coping skills and modeling those.
And just knowing that the colors of our emotions, it should be a rainbow. It's not supposed to all be yellow, right?
No,
Okay.
It won't be. And that's realistic in this. And so as we grew in that first Inside Out, it was kind of sad in a way that childhood happiness was moving. And this too can be that way too. But it's finding that balance. And I think that's ultimately what we are always working on our entire lives, is finding a good balance.
Okay. Thank you. Christy Buck, Mental Health Foundation
very
of West
much.
Michigan. We're going to have fun now at the Children's Museum and make some noise with our emotions.
Love it. Absolutely. It's a beautiful display also.
Have a great day.